What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Paul Brown here, and I'm joined by the two-weight Oktagon world champion, Will Fleury. Will,
Oh,
congrats on a heavyweight title victory last weekend against Lazar Tabev at Oktagon 68, wasn't it?
yeah.
Eight. And yeah, you've had an eventful few days since you've come back to Ireland. You've come back to real life with a bang. Tell me about it.
Oh, yeah. So yesterday morning, I found out I've shattered the base of my thumb again. Bennett's fracture, and fairly complex one apparently. So I was in hospital all day yesterday, just being kept overnight and whatever. And then I was supposed to have surgery this morning, but when they reviewed it with a CT scan, they just thought it's a little bit too complex, so they're going to call in somebody from, I think, Connolly Hospital, hand specialist or whatever, and they're going to hopefully operate in the next couple of days. So there you go. That's fighting for a living for you.
Yeah, and like there's fighting, and then there's fighting at the rate and the intensity that you've been doing it. And I mean, you've got 10 rounds in the bank already, world title fights in a little over 2 months, like at this point. So it's been a heavy schedule for you. And overall, I think 4 fights in less than a year. Some journey, but you get a minute now just to sit down and take a deep breath and take it all in. It doesn't come you don't get away with that stuff for free, yeah.
No, yeah, but overall, like I'm doing look, obviously today and yesterday were tough days, but like ultimately, man, I'd much rather be here now than I'd be where I was. Like, look, it's my birthday today, but
Happy birthday.
right, I remember my birthday turning 35, and I was like, Jesus, I have very little to my name. Considering how much effort I've poured into this thing, it really hasn't left me much. Whereas now I'm in a position where, God, yeah, that's way better. So even though, okay, my hand is broken today, my hand will heal, and I will go on and I'll do more fantastic things. The doors are wide open now. Like Oktagon see the potential in me. I think everyone around the world can see this guy's going to go out and do special things if you give him the opportunity to. So, I feel like the future's bright, even though the last couple of days have been tough days, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you're now in a position with a lot of strong leverage, a two-way world champion within the organization. Before we kind of get to where you go from here, let's talk about, like, I mean, where you've come from. You just mentioned it there a year ago. You weren't even signed with Oktagon a year ago. You
I had
were
signed. I'd just signed a contract this time last year. Like I think it was the very start of February that I signed the contract, and I don't know if the bout with Ford had been announced yet, but I was trying my best. I was, talking a lot of shit, trying to get an opponent and calling everybody out and doing up those videos. But I was in a position where it didn't look like they were massively invested in it. It was tough to see it turning out like this.
Yeah, because we had a chat like after the second Oktagon fight, and you were pleading, and you were getting pretty frustrated at that point with the world title fight not being handed to you at that stage. You had come off the back of two massive knockouts. And I'll be honest, we had a chat, and we didn't do one of these interviews. We just had a chat via like WhatsApp messages. Or we had a phone call, and I recorded it, and I wrote a nice big feed about it for MMA Succa. I had to make it a bit more PC than the words that kind of came out of your mouth, because when I was writing it, transcribing all of the things you were saying, I was like very emotional about this, and afraid to put some of these things that he said. You were so frustrated with the situation, so I kind of made it sound a little nicer than the way you had put it. But your desperation for that world title shot was evident in
Yeah.
that conversation, and thankfully you got it. Not only did you get that, you got the second one. I mean, the last couple of months must have been a hell of a whirlwind for you.
Yeah, it has been. And look, I suppose there's nothing more frustrating than not getting the opportunity. So if you feel like you've worked extremely hard to get somewhere, and yet you're being denied because you're not the right type of person, like you're not from the right place, which was the case in that situation. And you're definitely a good enough fighter to go in and do it, and yet the business circumstances are conspiring against you. It's extremely frustrating. So that's probably what I was feeling at that stage. And I can remember that it was not easy to deal with, because your job as a fighter is to be as good as you can be, and obviously you have to sell and entertain. But I feel like I went out and did all of those things in my first few fights, and yet still there was a lack of faith in me to go and deliver. and not deliver from a fighting point of view, but maybe deliver from a kind of pay-per-view point of view. So when they gave me that Carlos fight and when the hype was so big behind it, I think it settled their minds, and it also showed me, hey, look, no matter where you go, you can be a star. So like, if they're bringing you over to Central Europe, as long as you go out there and beat Will Fleury, people are going to love that. Like, and they did, thank God. Like, and look, even there at the weekend, like, you just, I've spent 15 years, in gyms being this guy. So like, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't go out there and be this guy. And I think that's more interesting than any showmanship or anything like that. That, you know, I am this. I am that raw bastard, and like, I want it. I want it so badly. And with that, like, I'm not afraid to go out and talk a little bit of shit and entertain, but at the same time, I'm going to stick to the core of who I am. And that's like, Czech fans have responded really well to that. German fans have responded really well to that. It's been glass, but yeah, like, I was definitely very frustrated at that stage of my career.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you got what you wanted and you got the opportunity, which is all you were looking for to kind of prove you are who you say you are. And not a lot of people sort of get that platform on the big stage. What has it been like now looking back on it, feeling the vindication maybe in being able to back up all the things you said?
Yeah, it's like there's a satisfaction with it, but you can't get too invested in that because there's always someone coming up, man. And I even after all my fights, I feel like, wow, I just have to improve this and I have to improve this and I have to improve this. So on my end, there's an awareness of the work that still has to be done. But to go in there and to be able to, like Tadev, I feel like he's a great fighter. And I think he showed he's a great fighter. And even like fighting that guy for 4.5 rounds with a broken hand and actually my ankle, the talus bone is out of place as well. And that was happening like slightly before the fight, and that's my fault. Like I messed up, injured myself before the fight, and then didn't clear with commission all the strapping and the stuff that I should have had. So when I strapped my ankle up on the night, they were like, "No, you can't use it this way." So I went in with a slightly injured, non-strapped ankle, and I was kicking him early on, and that bone came out of place. So I felt that. I knew that during the fight. I didn't know my hand was broken until after the fight, but I felt something was up. Um, so yeah, like it's satisfying to be able to go in and do those things, definitely. But it's also like, what does it mean in the future is the biggest thing. So like, I've obviously got that ability, and I want to increase those abilities. But can it lead to something really big? Can I go and, you know, sell out a Tree Arena with this? Because that, like, right now, that's my real goal. Like, I want to make this thing massive and I want to make it big in Ireland. And even I'm pushing the Octagon to kind of start investing in media over here a little bit more, to get themselves to be a bit more mainstream and within Ireland and within the Irish and UK market. Like, and I think long term, that's the thing I'm focused on most. And I think there's a lot of potential for that. So that's what I'm gunning for now.
The idea of coming back home and headlining a big show, a big arena here in Ireland, it'd be music to a lot of MMA fans' ears over here, I'm sure. They had their fingers burned a little bit with their foray into the UK market. The low attendances over I think the UK shows did,
Yeah, but
and
England
I'm
isn't
getting
Ireland, man. We both know that. Like, so, like, if you can create a guy like myself who's a star, and like, I've gone out and become a star over there, you know. So if they can sell that back to the Irish market now and make me a little bit more mainstream within Ireland, people will definitely get behind it. And I think they just need to start to kind of put the groundwork into doing that.
yeah, there's definitely a scope there, and I mean they're starting to maybe put the feelers out a little bit, I believe, for a couple of Irish fighters here and there, and maybe get some green, white, and gold blood by
But
the Octagon banner. So that would
glad
be
to hear
pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, you, you talk about what's going to happen going forward. Obviously, now you're sitting on top. You're sitting pretty on top of two divisions, two weight classes.
Mhm.
Obviously, you're going to need time off now. You've had a hell of a lot of fights or in
Yeah.
head. Once you have had that break and fresh, re-energized, which weight class you would be back at for.
I don't know. There's no definite plan, but to me, the most logical thing to do would be to let these. Alex Popik is going to fight Pavel Langer. That's supposed to be a number one contender fight. So let the two of them fight each other. There's possibly a chance that, like, look, if the opportunity presents itself, I want to win that middleweight belt. I see that, like, there's a rule in the contract that you have to defend the belt at least once a year, you get stripped. So I now have a timeline until the 8th of March next year in my head to become a triple champ. So obviously I need to heal up right now. It's like that the fact that I'm even thinking this way is mad, but like, I've got a couple of months of rehab and like get this surgery, stay in the cast for a while, then rehabilitate the hand and all that. Probably fight at light heavyweight on the way down and then make middleweight and see if they'll give me the title fight there. And if it all makes sense, we'll do that. That would be the ideal goal and plan right now. But opportunity comes to pass in life. So if a bigger opportunity comes up somewhere else, like I see the KSW owner, he's saying that all of his champions would smash all the Oktagon champions. If he'd be willing to release his guy, Rafael Hartiak, and we could do a KSW v Oktagon champ fight, something like that, I'd be very open to that too. And honestly, I just want to do the biggest fights possible for as long as I can. And if that's going down and becoming a triple champ, which I think would be pretty special, I think I'd be the first person in the unified, like I'm not under the proper weight class rules to go and do that. And that'd be over 80 pounds. You'd be the champion as well. So like from 185 to 265, you're the champ. That'd be pretty damn class. So whatever opportunity presents itself, I'll go out there and seize. But I have some ideas, like I'm listing out there, and I don't think anything's going to happen too soon. I think those are going to be within, 6 months or within 8 months or whatever. We'll see.
We just saw today, like the middleweight title picture, obviously is going to take a little bit of time to flesh
Mm.
out because the champion is tied up in the Tip Sport tournament.
Yeah,
The belt isn't on the line when he fights. And Muradov and Kinchel were confirmed today for an interim title fight. Whoever wins that and probably gets the next title shot. So be quite a while before there'd be an opening for maybe you to step into a title fight, which may just align with the plan you just mapped out there for me.
good. That's the thing. And you never know. People get injured. Like, I wasn't supposed to get the Carlos fight last year. Uh, you, that guy, Samuel Kristofic, Pirate, he got injured. So I managed to, campaign enough to get that slot at the end. And these things happen. So, like, as long as you're willing to put your hand up and seize the opportunities, things can happen. And, like, at this stage, I've kind of become a star. So I'm one of the names there, So I'm always like, if I'm willing to do it, you've got a little bit more pull and a little bit more leverage now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe another opportunity pops up.
Yeah, you never like I always say, closed mouths don't get fed. So you
Yeah,
gotta put your hand in the air for these things and
exactly. Yeah,
gotta speak them into existence.
exactly.
The weight class thing is interesting to me because you don't see a hell of a lot of fighters bouncing between three separate weight classes. It happen a
Yeah.
hell of a lot because it's fighters time to adapt. People who are kind of new to Will Fleury might not realize that you actually won middleweight title before in UAE Warriors, and you competed most of your career as a middleweight before making the move. So making this jump up to heavyweight, quite a big step for you. And
Yeah.
on the outskirts looking in, I mean, you can look at the weight that you guys both weighed in within a couple of pounds of each other. They're kind of the same size anyway. But I think when you're fighting at a weight class for a long time, like he is, coming into it new, like where obviously that is a completely different thing. It takes time to adapt to training. As a middleweight, you're training with different amounts of fuel in your body throughout your camp, covering differently, then having to actually go through round after round. You had to buy full rounds after putting differently than you had done before. How did you feel on the night over the course of the 5 rounds?
You can see yourself there. I gasped pretty badly in the last round. Some of that was I got quite sick during the camp. It was probably COVID. I got a bad dose of, but I got some sort of a virus about 6 weeks before the fight, and I was 3 weeks pretty bad, where like I had no taste or smell, a bad chest infection, all that type of thing. A lot of people seem to get the same thing, but I just noticed I didn't quite bounce back as fit. And obviously, you put on a kilo or two. I didn't massively change my build or anything, but even carrying that weight around, Now, I did 5-5s in sparring a few times over the last few weeks before the fight, and I felt pretty good. I felt pretty fit, and like obviously I was tired during those 5-5s in sparring even. But on the night, I was moving really well, and I felt the first two rounds like, or even yeah, at the end of the second, I was noticing I was like slowing down a little bit with my footwork. And I think that bone in the ankle I could feel at that point because like I kicked a few times with it in the first round and I felt it move. But it wasn't actually affecting my footwork that badly until the end of the second where I kind of went to bend my back leg and I could feel that it was blocked. So the swelling had already started to come in then. So the knee just wasn't bending the way, like you're kind of not generating as much force coming in, but you're also not able to like dip and roll under shots while you're keeping your position, if you know what I mean. So if you see I'm starting to hinge at the hips a bit after the second round, where like instead of rolling under and bending my knees and coming back with a counter, I'm just hinging at the hips and swinging my arms up over to try and protect myself. And like, look, that's not ideal technique, obviously, but um, it felt it felt pretty good up until I started to gas, basically. But I've never gassed like that in a fight. I've never had to dig that deep in a fight before where I did like, look, I can sit here and speak all I want, but you can see the desire there, like where like I've done this for a long time, man. I got that chance. Nobody was gonna take that chance from me. Like I wasn't gonna let anyone come in and you know, I I just really wanted it. And yeah, I went and got it, basically. I wasn't gonna let him take it away. And that's what it was, that was the determining factor. It doesn't always come down to emotion and that type of shit, but it really did on Saturday. And yeah, fuck it, I'm glad I'm that guy.
Yeah, I mean, when you're having to spend so long through the trenches, you're going to have to fall back on all of that and all the heartache and all the trouble to kind of drag yourself through deep waters like that, like a 5 round fight. And, the ending of the fight, I mean, you're going into the fifth round of that fight, and the odd thing, or not the odd, but the unique thing about the Octagon fights is that you have open scoring as well. So you're
Yeah.
aware of where you are on the scorecards going into the final round. You find that obviously on a night like that, you're going to find that as a massive positive, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's hard to know because I don't like I've thought about this a bit. I don't know how it would have come out in the fifth round had I known or had I maybe I felt like probably either way I could like I felt like I'd won the fourth. I definitely won the third and I definitely won the first. The second was actually pretty damn close. So I was wondering if there was no open scoring how it would have felt. And like in my eyes, even though he'd hit me with some good shots, I was dominating the vast majority of the action. Um, so like even at the end of the first, I was like, well, look, he dropped me, but like I dominated everything else, and like I landed some really nice, clean, crisp shots. The first is the round I'm most proud of, even watching it back. The second, like even watching the second now, I'd probably give it to him. Like it was a very close round, and I started off well, and I took him down, but he reversed it with that Kimura, and he caught me at the end of the second quite well. Now, like I led most of the action, but overall, I would have probably given the second to him. Now, that's watching it back. My feeling at the time was very close round. Um, then, yeah, 100% I won the third. Also, yeah, he needed me in the head in a second, so like I could have played that up and got the point deduction there as well. Um, I like right. Anyway, regardless, I definitely won that third. I thought that could have been a 10-8. I probably you see this might have been the hand being broken and not me not realizing at the time. I should have separated, but I was like, oh, I can get off and go ground and pound. And then every time I was kind of going to, it was like something in my brain was not quite throwing it the way it could have. Um, could have been that, like. But look, yeah, possible case for a 10-8 in the third. Uh, so I knew I won that round. And then the fourth, I felt like I dominated the majority of the action, even though he might have landed the better shot. Like he landed one really good right hand in that round. But overall, I was clipping him. I was clipping him to the body. I was coming back up and checking him with the head kick the odd time. Um, so I probably would have known either way that I was ahead going into that final round. But having it there in black and white in front of you, I don't know if it's better or worse. because I definitely knew at that stage, it's like, right, your bollocks, just don't get finished. That's not a good attitude. That's not an attitude I want to ever have in a fight again. Um, I should have went at him a little bit more. Like in the first 2 minutes of that round, I did a pretty good job staying away. I just, you know, when you just have to survive, it's a different situation. And especially when you're that tired, man. We're heavyweights fighting 5 rounds, and it had been a very high paced 5 rounds. So, like, and as well, like, there's kind of a thing of like, I'd been hitting him with that broken hand. I didn't realize it was broken at the time, but I kind of just feel like I felt like I don't have the power in that hand to put him away. So it was a weird thing to go like, even if you hit this guy really flush, he's still going to be there. That was genuinely pretty disheartening. So, yeah, like, I probably wish I didn't know going into the last round. I think I might have got a little bit more out of myself, but I really did dig as deep as I could to, you know, still put him on the back foot that round. Uh, it's hard to say. I don't know. I would need to be in that situation again without open scoring.
With the open scoring thing, I always think now it's for me it would be a bit of a negative. Like fighting is mentally and emotionally draining and challenging enough. There's a lot to kind of process in your head while you're doing it, every little micro battle within the fight. And this
Mm.
kind of it adds a sort of an unnecessary one. Do you know what I mean? It throws a spanner in the works, maybe makes you doubt yourself or question yourself. What should I do here? Whereas you're probably not fighting to your best of your capabilities, like you said there. You're maybe fighting a way you naturally do, result of where you are on the scorecards, rather than doing what you do best.
You see, I think the problem actually might be the 10-point must system because overall you should be rewarded for doing more. Do you get me? So, like, more damage, more effective grappling, more everything.
Or
Whereas if
more
you know
more
what you,
liberal with 10-8s, maybe.
even like, I think this thing of like, oh, sure, it's 10 or it's 9, it's a load of bollocks. You should earn points based on what you're doing. And even the fact that, like, all right, you're 2 rounds up, so you can't lose the fight unless it's 10-8. That's a load of bollocks. Like the fact that, right, say like Tolif gets a 10-9 in the second round, even though it's an extremely close round, and I get a 10-9 in the third, even though that round was me absolutely smashing him for the whole round. That makes no sense. So we're even. Like if that was 2 rounds and we were going into round three, we'd be even now going into the third. That's bollocks. And I've always thought, like, like regardless of open scoring, I think that's just a shit system for accounting for a fight. And it doesn't accurately represent what's happening within that fight at all. So, like, I think honestly, like, for boxing, 10-point must might work. And even if it does, like, does it? But for MMA, it definitely doesn't. So I think it should be an accumulative system whereby, like, you get rewarded for doing damage. So say there's a possible 5 points for damage, there's a possible 2 points for effective grappling, there's a possible point for cage control. And overall, in every round, you can earn maybe up to 10 points. And, you decide those factors yourself, what they are, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And if you do very, very little, maybe you get 1 point. If you do a hell of a lot, maybe you get 4 points, like, but it's points earned. It's not you start with 10 and you have a possibility of, if you win and you beat the crap out of a guy for a round, you get a 10-9 round. Like, the fact that those two things can be even, like, a very closely won round and a round where you absolutely dominate, and it's 10-9, 10-9, either way, then it's not an accurate representation of the fight. You haven't been rewarded for your effort. So we need a new system, and I've been saying this for years. Like, I remember, I had a big tirade about this back in 2016, because, like, it's been the case for a long time. And I think anybody who really sits down and has a good long think about it can see that. And even the situations there, like, if he, like, let's say I'm 4 points up and there's a possibility he can earn 10 points in that round and I can earn zero. Man, you got to go out there and fight no matter what. Doesn't matter. If he does enough damage and he does enough this round, he's going to win. Because it's possible that the fight can completely swing in one round, even if he doesn't finish you. Whereas my attitude, because of the 10-point must system, is, well, as long as you don't get finished, you've won the fight. So I think the scoring system's the problem, not open scoring. I think I don't have a problem with open scoring. And even, like, look, my attitude there, it's getting used to open scoring within that system, like, and I don't have a whole ton of experience with it because up to now it hasn't really mattered. That was the first time it's actually matter. You know, like I finished Gore, I finished Langer. The Carlos fight was obviously going my way the entire fight, so there wasn't any real worry about that. So yeah, like I have to get a little bit more experience, but I think, and look, I'm not holding my breath for this, but I think the actual more reasonable thing would be for the scoring system to change. I don't think open scoring is a problem. If you look at Olympic boxers, they have to deal with open scoring as well. And like, I think it's a good thing in Olympic boxing because if you're 2 rounds down, okay, go for it. Whereas, you know, boxing's so closely run, it's hard to tell a lot of the time. So from that point of view, I'd rather know where I stand.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to reform because no matter what way you reform scoring criteria, it's going to be difficult for fighters and coaches to fully grasp what. I mean, when they brought in the new scoring criteria in 2016, till now I'm getting people referring to me as two score years now. So
Yeah.
it's difficult. People still don't fully wrap their heads around it. I want to
But do we
circle.
need like, sorry,
Go on.
my whole point here, because I've had that argument with other people as well, where like they say, oh, well, people understand the 10-point must system. It's
Don't.
like, right, they don't. And like, even at that, it's kind of like a lot of the criteria, like people go, oh, they don't understand the criteria. Man, it's pretty obvious to tell who's winning a fight once you know anything about fighting. So, can you repeat, like, I think the 10-point system just doesn't do an accurate job of rewarding the dominance of a fighter puts out there a lot of the time. Because, like, some of the rounds I've had that have been 10-9 rounds, and then I've watched other fights and I've seen guys get 10-9 round. I'm like, that guy landed like a half a jab more, you know, like extremely close round. And you could have rounds where you're absolutely dominating a guy and he barely touches you. And that's also a 10-9 round. Nah, doesn't add up,
That's
man.
always frustrated me now. The fact that you do wildly different rounds and they all score the same.
Yeah.
Um, just circling back to the Ireland Octagon show idea that we were talking about earlier. Have you spoken to anyone within the promotion about the possibility of that happening further down the line?
Yeah. I got brought up at the press conference. They're definitely open to it. It's just seeing the hunger. So it's seeing that that will sell. And I can't blame them. Like, look, they're selling out massive stadiums in Germany. Like, that was 15,000. They did 60,000 last year at one stage. They're regularly going to sell out well in the Czech Republic. They've gotten their fingers burned in England. You know, none of the shows there sold well. You can't blame them for saying we have a good thing here. You know, we've got a really good domestic market here, and they've invested a lot in Germany, and people there are buying into the product big time, and fans are paying for tickets. And if you can sell 15,000 tickets in Germany, you know, why are you going to go to the Tree Arena and sell 9 or 10 if it's not a sure thing? So that's why my angle on this now is to invest in promoting the thing before you're even thinking of coming. So get on one of the TV networks here, get your product out there, make people aware what this thing is, and then they can start to buy in. Like, you know, when they see what I am as well, I think Irish fans are going to buy into that a little bit more. Mainstream Irish fans, you know what I mean? Like the actual kind of casual guy. So like once that happens, then I think you have a hungry audience. And once they have that hungry audience, they'll come. But they're definitely open to it. Like they got asked at the press conference by oh god, I forget your man's name, but the guy Full Force Combat, and he basically just said, when are you going to come to Ireland? And he was pretty much gave that answer. But then I also said, like, look, once they see the desire, they will come. And I'd like, that's the case. They're not going to like, especially if I keep going out there and doing special things. You know, they're going to want to come to Ireland. They want to expand. They want to get bigger and bigger. It's their goal too. But I'm very hungry for it to come to Ireland, and I'm very hungry. Like, man, fighting at home again would mean a lot to me, you know, and fighting in front of my own fans and even just creating a legacy here. Like, this is where I'm going to live for the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to go anywhere else. So, like, I'm more famous in the Czech Republic now than I am in Ireland, but like, ultimately, I would like for my legacy to be here rather than over there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing Paul Hughes had his Belfast homecoming show announced over the last kind of week or so. Opponent announced yesterday, and Bruno Miranda.
Yeah,
Going to be a huge moment for him. So obviously, you're looking at that thinking, wow,
it's class.
that would be amazing,
Yeah, it's class. And look, he's earned that. Like, and that, like, that's what I mean. Like, they gave him the opportunity to go in and fight the likes of AJ McKee. He showed it. they gave him the fight against Umar or Usman, sorry. He showed that he's that guy. So like, there's a guy capitalizing on the opportunities he was given, showing who he was, and now he's been rewarded. I would give like I made those opportunities. I wasn't given anything really, but like I capitalized on the opportunities I was given, and now I feel like okay, guys, we have to start to invest in Ireland eventually, you know. So I would love for that to be the case in my career as well.
The arena headline show, Will Fleury, Oktagon. That would
So
be a
yeah,
pretty
it'd
good
be
crowning
incredible,
moment.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know, like you know, even thinking about that like makes me very emotional. So like, it's on me to make that a reality, but I need a little bit of investment on their behalf, and like I think that is just getting the product out there a little bit more over here in a mainstream way.
Already proved. You keep asking, you just keep knocking on that door, and
Yeah,
sometimes these things
that's
happen.
it.
So
Yeah, and
that's a
it's
good place to end it,
exactly.
Will. Listen, I hope you recover pretty well. I'll be talking to you probably after your surgery anyway. You can let me know how you
Cheers,
go. And thanks so much for your time. And congrats again. What a massive victory.
cheers. Thanks for the Paul. Appreciate it,
Legend.
man. Thanks for the time.